Good evening, Kyle. So nice to see you. I was almost going to say happy Monday, but we have made it to Tuesday, and that's kind of exciting.
We have, and you just reminded me I have to take my trash out by saying that. So
Oh my
thank
gosh.
you.
Well, I'm very happy to help with that. Do you have like certain days of the week that they do trash pickup, or are you what is that like? Okay.
Yeah, I'm in Philadelphia, so if you don't have it out on the curb by Wednesday morning, you're waiting another week.
No. Whoa, that's like a big amount of time.
Yeah, I don't have any like trash can outside to put it in either, so it's important.
Okay, so this is times of the essence. If I remember when we get off this call, I will remind you again because trash stuff is just it's serious business. No
Mhm.
fooling around with it.
Yeah,
I this is definitely the first time we've started a conversation or a recording with garbage, but I think it's kind of fun. It feels very New York, very Philadelphia, completely
definitely.
perfect. To pivot a little bit, I saw you sipping something in a mug. Is it a coffee? Is it a hot cocoa? Is it a water? Is it Gatorade? What's your
Is
beverage?
iced ginger tea. Yeah.
Wow. That is the vibe for a Tuesday evening kind of chill experience. I love it. Well,
Yeah.
it's so nice to be here with you. For anyone who doesn't know yet, but hopefully soon will be very tuned in to your world. This is Kyle Sparkman, musician. And Kyle, I'm so excited to learn more about your story. As I had shared with you, I was in Philadelphia recently visiting a friend and I saw your poster for I think it was for the album or maybe it was for a performance or something, but I was instantly drawn in and very excited to learn about the music behind the thing. So thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for reaching out. Super cool that we connected this way. Like you said, you saw the artwork for my debut album, and this was the first time I ever went out and like put up posters, like the like wheat pasting. You get this like wallpaper paste and just like paste them up. So I was very happy with the artwork. I knew it was like eye catching, and it seems like it worked a little bit.
Yes, I hope to be a good like test subject that people are being reached. This is a wonderful indication. So we will go back in time first a little bit before we bring it to this amazing album. I want to learn about Kyle as a kid, if you would go there. So, where were you growing up? What were you like? Were you always into music, or were you like a sports person at one time? Maybe currently too. I don't know. I'll
Yeah.
leave it to you.
For sure. Yeah, so I grew up in southern New Jersey, about 40 minutes outside of Philadelphia, where I currently live. Just like classic suburban upbringing. I started playing piano in like 2004 because I wanted to play guitar. My parents insisted that I try piano first. And so I did that for a year and then quickly quit piano lessons and then begged my parents for a guitar and started taking guitar lessons. And then I was never one of those people who were like, oh, he's gonna be a musician. Like I was totally like hobbyist guitarist. I didn't care about it that much. I took lessons like on and off for like 2 years and then just like quit altogether. I played tennis in high school.
Wow.
Yeah, and like was never that seriously into music until I got to college. And I don't know why something clicked there, but I got heavily into playing guitar. And then didn't start singing even until I was like a junior in college. And then like just started falling down the rabbit hole of being obsessed with music. And by the time I graduated college, I knew I wanted to pursue a career in music. So that's the Cliff Notes version.
Yeah, you did a really great job of wrapping that up with a bow, but I'm sure, there was so many special moments in the midst of it. The first thing I want to harp on is the parents saying, like, you must play piano. Were they big piano fans? Or I feel like a lot of parents are kind of default to piano, but I don't know that I've ever pinned down exactly why. Like, do you know
Yeah.
anything about their rationale for you?
I should ask them because it's a really intelligent move because the piano gives you a really great foundation for music theory and is like a really fantastic starting off point for like a life of playing music. But I don't think that's what my parents' rationale was. I think my parents had this like old piano, and I think they're more like, well, here's something that already exists in our house, and we're not going to go out and spend like $200 on a guitar and amp, which will be much louder if he's just going to like pick it up and drop it. I'm guessing that was the reasoning. My dad like plays guitar, was never like super serious about it, just kind of enjoys strumming around and stuff. So I don't know if they went that deep into thinking about it, but yeah, it worked out. I'm glad they made me do that because I still enjoy playing piano to this day.
That's so cool. It sounds like either way it was practical, maybe from a cost perspective, maybe from a career, lifelong music perspective, but it worked out really good. And that's so cool. And you talked about in college there being a series of kind of things that maybe clicked or parts of your identity that became solidified. I was reflecting, especially as you spoke about like starting to get into singing. And I can imagine in like one scenario in my head, you are a song is stuck in your head and you're like in the shower, you start singing, and you're like, whoa, I have a voice. This is a thing now. But I don't know that that's exactly how it happened. What was your singing foray like? How did you get started there?
That's a good question. I think came from spending more time with my guitar. And unless you're playing with other people, or you're a fantastic guitarist, like it can get a little bit boring. And like, you want to play all your favorite songs. I think I just started from there, just like, crooning out horrible covers in my bedroom. And then I ended up moving to France to study at a school over there. And when I first got there, I was living in this apartment. I had no cell service or internet at all for like 2 weeks, which is crazy. Like I had no internet. Like I was so bored that I just started writing songs and like singing in that regard. So that was kind of the thing that started it there.
Whoa. Oh, that's so cool. Necessity truly is the mother of invention.
Yeah, absolutely. There are also a few moments I guess I glossed over. Like I remember I wanted to start playing guitar. I remember like one of the first songs that ever gave me goosebumps was Sympathy for the Devil by the Rolling Stones. There's like a guitar solo at the end. And that's what led me to like beg my parents to get a guitar. And then when I was in college, actually I have my guitar right here.
Oh,
I
cool.
don't remember what possessed me to do it, but there's this like French composer guitarist, and he has this song in like a movie called Midnight in Paris, and it just like was stuck in my head, and I was like, I'm gonna try to learn this, and I was like, if I can learn this, I can do anything. And it had all these like crazy, like it's like a difficult style that I don't play, like just like a lot of like French sounding stuff like that. So that was like I
Um,
like dove in on that. I think I learned like I still need to finish like learning the full song. I think I learned like 80% of it, and that gave me some confidence on the guitar. So yeah.
that is so cool to make your own sort of like initiation into guitar mastery. Like if I can learn this like by ear, it sounds. Did you learn it just by listening to it?
Definitely not. I use guitar tablature, but yeah.
Okay, very cool nonetheless. A really special feat. And so I'm still thinking about that college era. You did not go to school to study music, right? So
Oh
you were just
no,
dabbling in it.
yeah.
Like, how did it all fit together in that time in your life?
I went to school and I was originally thinking about being an English major, and my parents were like, that's maybe not, the most practical plan. My parents are very practical people. So I ended up like going to school for like business, and I just picked economics because it had a lot of elective hours that gave me flexibility. And yeah, I don't know if I was ever truly passionate about it. So that's what I was studying, even when I was in France. And after I studied at a university in France, I found an internship at this like massive like multinational utilities company in like the financial accounting division. And I was like wearing a suit, and it was everything about the job was super cushy. It was like steps from the Arc de Triomphe, this like big beautiful monument in Paris, and it was super chill. Like the Parisian like corporate work life is like not intense, and it was very easy, but I was like miserable, and I just like knew I could never like work a 9 to 5 like job like that. So pretty much just quit it halfway through. I had like a very like moment of reckoning, and I went home and I was like, I'm gonna do music. So yeah.
Whoa, that is not an easy thing at that age. I feel like, I don't know, for me at least, if I was in your shoes, you're an adult, but you're also like a student. And so you still feel like a kid, like, or at least I would. What was it like when you had that conversation with your family? Was it like the piano guitar thing all over again, the English econ? Like, I can't imagine.
A little bit. I mean, like my family knew me to like, I think at that point I had only really started playing guitar in other people's bands, and they didn't know me as a songwriter or like anything. So, I don't even think I shared any of the songs I was writing with them, but I was like, yeah, I'm gonna like go for a career in music. I remember telling my sister that, and she just like laughed at me, like,
No.
which now she's my biggest fan, so it's okay. But my parents were just like, okay. And like, I think their only thing was like, we just want you to like work on a backup plan at the same time. They're like, don't like go and just like wait tables while you're trying to do that. Like, do some stuff with your degree. So they were pretty supportive. I mean, they've always been super supportive. It's been awesome.
That's beautiful. There's this like adage in scripture that talks about the people who are like in your hometown are the ones that are like the ones that are hardest to buy into the vision because they know you as this little kid who played tennis, right? And was forced into piano lessons. And so that could be, I imagine, like a vulnerable thing to be like, I'm gonna leave this beautiful cushy job next to the Arc de Triomphe and kind of wing it from here. So very cool that you took that stance and went forward and got support from your family, even if they couldn't see where it was headed.
Yeah, I think you really hit the nail on the head there. Cause like I used to, I mean, I still like, there's still a part of me that's deeply uncomfortable with my parents coming to a show because you're just in the mindset. I was like, I'm trying to become this musician thing. And like, I just like look over, my dad's got his iPhone up and I'm like, I'm still a kid. I was like, no, it's like really hard to, it can throw you off.
Yes.
I'm
Oh
used to
no.
it now,
That
but
makes sense. It's funny, right before we got on here, my sister had like a vocal recital tonight for her music lessons, and it was on Zoom. And I have to ask her if she felt the same way when our grandma accidentally unmuted, like there's just
oh, classic.
classic grandma. And she watches these, so she'll hear me call her out, but it's okay. So you had this reckoning moment. Did you literally get on a plane the next day and like chart a course in music? How do we get to the next step in the story?
Yeah, I mean, I just like quit halfway through. It was very vague. I was like, something's wrong. I have to leave. And like at the same time, like that was no loss on their end. Like they were just like, I was just doing like intern stuff, like pretending to look at spreadsheets all day. So no loss on to the company. But yeah, I left and then I went and finished out college where I was going down in South Carolina. And I started a band there and I went to a college town that was like, there's nothing besides the college like in the town. So I formed a band there. And like at that point we had like a couple originals. We were mostly just playing covers in a bar, but like we immediately like had a little bit of buzz because there's only 4 other bands like active in the town. So it was like, I was like, oh, this is so easy. Like the first show we played, like there was a line out the door. I was like, I'm going to be a musician. It'd be so easy. And then I moved to Philadelphia and I was in for a rude awakening. That I had a lot of learning and stage time to get under my belt.
Yeah, I think that combination though could be a really helpful thing, right? To get a little bit of an ego boost is not a bad thing to go into a bigger pond, right? That is an awesome order that happened in.
100%. I mean, if I had known how difficult it is and stuff, I don't know if I would have embarked on this journey. So I think you need some of that naive beginner confidence for anything that you're trying to, any entrepreneurial pursuit.
Ain't that the truth? You spoke about forming a band and also playing guitar in other people's bands. And I think this is a cool segue into just like what your style is and how that evolved and like how you seek out people to complement that style. Wherever you want to go with that, I'd love to learn more.
Yeah, for sure. So like I grew up listening to like classic rock and my dad would always just like put on the radio and quiz me and stuff. So like when I first started learning, I was just like playing classic rock style stuff like Jimi Hendrix, who's like an inspiration for so many guitarists. And I always liked funky stuff. Then in college, I got into like the Red Hot Chili Peppers and Nirvana a lot. Again, just like quintessential like white boy college bands. But yeah, I really connected with like a funky style of guitar playing, like a blend of like funk and rock that is really like a lineage of like the blues to like Jimi Hendrix to like players like Stevie Ray Vaughan, like John Mayer and John Frusciante of the Red Hot Chili Peppers. So I was always in that vein. In college, I was just looking for whoever was around and liked that general style of music. Found some guys that was like, we kind of connected on that. But at that point, we're still playing covers. And I'm still learning about like the best way to connect with people. And, there's some musical chemistry that goes on. And sometimes you just get lucky and you click with someone and yeah, it's hard. I think the main thing is like talking to people about what kind of music they're interested in, because there has to be some shared thread going on. Otherwise, you're going to be pulling in different directions, which I've also had like an experience with. I tried to basically, like, the band I started in college was called the Frequent Flyers. And I just tried to like take that branding and move it up to Philadelphia and reform it with some friends I went to high school with. And we tried it, but like never had a discussion like, hey, what kind of music do you like? We were all just like, let's do this, and jumped right in. And like, just from the get-go, we're pulling in different directions. So it ultimately didn't work out. And I just like very much knew the kind of music I wanted to make. And then also saw how much of being in a band is like dating 4 to 5 other people at the same time. And like, it's so, I think the reason that most bands don't make it is they just can't last through the relationships, and like come together as a team is what's needed. So I do things, I just put music out under my own name, and it gives me, the freedom to just like keep moving forward and not worry about, what other people are doing. Like, I'll use a rotating cast of band members to play in my band. But yeah, it's like, even as you get older, it's like staying in a band with people. It's like you're in your late 20s, people just start to get married and like move away. And it's just like, yeah, it's really hard to keep a band together. I kind of
Yeah,
drift off your question there, but
no, I am so glad that you went there, because I totally took for granted, the intentionality behind going, like, putting your name out there rather than a band name, and having that flexibility to pull people in and out, because our lives, it's really hard to be tethered to other people when it's not through marriage. Like, it's just, that is, and
right.
even through marriage, that's very difficult. But especially as a band of multiple people, I think that analogy of dating multiple people at the same time is really going to stick with me, of what that experience is like. Has there been any like cool lessons that have come out of being part of different bands and pulling out of them and bringing them together, that stick with you from this journey so far?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, every time I, play with people, I'm learning from them, both like what to do and what not to do. I've had situations where I've been the guitarist, and like, they talk about lead singer syndrome, where lead singers can be divas, and I've witnessed that and stuff. And you can kind of see, if you like, I'm also like the lead of my band just because I'm singing and stuff. And it's like, just seeing someone else like maybe like act out in a way that, from like an outside perspective, just like, what is this person doing? They're being ridiculous. But like, you kind of understand how much of it comes from a place of anxiety and like fear, and just like, it's hard to put yourself out there, especially with like music. Not only are you like singing, and that can be embarrassing or uncomfortable, but you're also just like putting out your own music, like what's come from your soul and stuff. And it's like there for the world to judge and stuff. So there's stuff like that. There's other players. Like, when I first moved to the city, I would see all these people who are just like, I thought were such amazing musicians. And now I feel like super fortunate to be in a place where like I'm working with most of those people that I was like, I really want to work with them. And, there's some who have like a decade more experience than I do. And like, anytime we're getting in the room together, I'm just like learning so much from, how they operate in terms of communicating with band members, musical ideas, just everything. There's lots of lessons to be learned. So
That's so cool. I'm thinking, like, the closest analogy I can think of is actors like being recruited to movies, right? I imagine in Hollywood, not only like do you want the star with like the name, but also, do they come to set on time, right? Like, are they a diva, right? So in the Philadelphia music scene, do you feel like when you're thinking about pairing with people, you're not just thinking about their style, but also their style of collaborating, like, as humans? How much does that matter in the music scene?
absolutely. I feel like part of one of my like strengths is my ability to like somewhat have myself put together. Like, there's a lot of musicians who are just too pure of artists, and they resist the idea that like, if you want to be in the music industry, it's an industry, and you have to like treat it like a business a little bit. And even that, I'm not saying everyone has to just like view their music as a business. It's more just like showing up on time, like putting in prep work, like not being the late, like there's so much laziness that comes through with musicians, and they can get by on talent. I really have come to resent that. So I'll always take someone who's less of a prodigy and more just like shows up on time, does their prep work, is communicative and stuff like that. And there's kind of the holy trinity we talk about with music. It's more applicable to like whether or not you should take a gig, where it's like, it has to be good music, a good hang, and good money. And if it's 2 out of those 3, you take the gig. If it's three, you like hold on to it and never let it go. If it's just one, it's not worth it. And it's zero, just like run the other direction. And that kind of applies to people too, you know, like I'll sacrifice a little bit of amazing musical skill for just like consistency and availability. And the ones who have all three are always just like booked up and they're so hard to get. So
That's so cool. I think that's an amazing group of three to keep in mind. And that when you can be all three, you can pursue all three. It's a great thing all around. There was a three like kind of packeted part phrase on your website or somewhere in your life that I wrote down because it stood out to me. It said the live show is energetic, the lyrics are prophetic, the fashion sense is pathetic. And it made me laugh, but it also seemed like it was a cool view into your soul or what mattered to you. And I would love for you to unpack that.
yeah, I'm just generally a big fan of the rule of three. And snappy. I guess it's just kind of like, I don't know, try to show who I am and stuff. Like self-deprecating. I don't take myself too seriously, and neither does my music. And yeah, like the live show, energetic. Like that's what I want. I want to go to a show and like not listen to depressing music. Like I will put my depressing lyrics into a funky song, and that way, you know, you can just at least dance and have a good time while I'm still getting out my all my inner anguish, you know. So
That is so cool. Because you can absolutely do both. And is there some common thread in the content that you make music about? So in like lyrics from album to album or song to song, what is the story you're sharing?
yeah, so I mean, I like to keep my lyrics open to interpretation because I think a song, regardless, I can have the clearest of intentions and someone can walk away with a meaning that's completely like nothing I'd ever even considered. So, you know, there's different camps of songwriters. Like I come from my influences, which are like Nirvana and the Red Hot Chili Peppers, like Kurt Cobain and Anthony Kiedis, like both as songwriters, I've really been inspired by them. And they're really vague if you ever look at their lyrics. Anthony Kiedis just writes like nonsense poetry almost, and Kurt's pretty vague as well. So I've always been in that camp, but I do have a meaning for each song of what it means to me. Sometimes there's multiple meanings, but usually I'm ruminating on just like overall human behavior, which is like kind of what my album is really centered on, existentialism and love. I think like love and death, that's what all the great songs are about. So
Yes,
half-baked proclamation.
that is very cool and very deep. And I'm excited to reckon with those more the next time I listen through everything. And
Depends who you ask. I was in the studio. I remember when we were writing one of the songs, the album, and it was a late night. And I like said to my friend, this producer, I was like, the only songs worth writing are about love and death. And she's like, what does that even mean? She's like, that's nonsense. It's like, all right, fair enough.
but when you say it with such, certainty, it's really easy to buy into it. I'm
Yeah,
convinced.
exactly.
That is great. And so one of the songs, at least, or you've had songwriting sessions, it sounds like with other people around in studios, is that the usual for you? Or are you often tucked away in your house by yourself? What is your zone? Does it all get done in one sitting? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, so it's a good question. I'm not usually the type that collaborates with other people. I usually write all my own songs pretty much from start to finish and then flesh them out to turn them into full productions with other band members. But during my album, I wanted variety. So I decided to experiment with one of my friends, this girl, Sam Rosen, who's like an incredible producer and songwriter. She actually was just part of a Grammy winning song. So she's a
Whoa.
Grammy winning producer. But yeah, it was cool to like write with her because we wrote in the studio, which I'm never comfortable with. I think overall those like, I still ended up going back and applying my process where I did like a bunch of like, no, we need to change these things like 4 months down the line and like, sorry, don't kill me, but we're going to restart. But yeah, usually I start with a guitar groove. Like I feel like all my songs are centered around guitar grooves. So I'll start there with like, I mean, one of my songs, it was just like so simple as like, I'll just like meditate on that for a little. And then I'll just start singing like gibberish. And I'll start like singing like little gibberish melody ideas, and then I'll fit in a lyric that makes sense, and then I'll generally bloom the entire song out from there. Like whatever that lyric pops into my head, I'll be like, okay, well, what can I fit the rest of the song about? I think John Mayer says like a song is like, you know, like one part like inspiration, like you get the inspiration, the moment, and like that's what tells you like this is worth pursuing and like finishing, and then the rest is like code cracking, where you just like figure out where everything else fits and like let it flow from there. So that's pretty much how I write the majority of my songs, like guitar groove, gibberish melody, lyrics. Of course, you know, there's always variety. Sometimes I have like a lyrical idea I'll build something around, but 80% of the time it's that.
That's so cool. What fun layers to see come like to fruition, right? The magic of that moment and experiences. Pretty special. I will pull up. You sent me a really cool clip of an important moment in your music journey, and so we can use that to kind of talk a little bit further. Let's see.
Cool.
Okay. Just as it fell into your hands, I'm only doing what you want, but no else. And can you make it on your own? Oh, well, you walk into a foreign lane, yeah. Just as it fell into your hands, I'm only doing what you want, but no else. And can you make it on your own? Ah, so cool.
Thanks.
Yes. Okay. So, it just it's such a vibe too. It makes me want to be like hanging out with friends somewhere, like tis the moment, tis the spirit. I can't wait to hear more about the background story.
Yeah, for sure. So that's just like a little snippet that I like throw in my electronic press kit or whatever. But yeah, I mean, that was kind of what started getting my music beyond the circle of just like family and friends who are like saying nice things. You're like, I don't know if they actually like this. But yeah, so I'd recorded this song called Funk 215, which people always ask me about the name, which it's kind of like a tribute to one of the first songs I learned on guitar, which is called Funk 49. So this is Funk 215, which 215 is the area code for Philadelphia. I put so little thought into the song like at the time. I was like, oh, this is like cool, like whatever. I recorded it at a studio, put it out, and like, family and friends said some nice things. And then around the same time, I had just decided like, hey, this song sounds cool when we play it live. So let's get a video of us playing it live. Like I just wasn't sure how to get people to listen to my music because there's so much new music out there. There's like 40,000 new songs go up on Spotify every day, which is a crazy and terrifying number.
Oh,
Yeah, but so I was like, well, whatever, I'll just do this. I had my friend who's an audio engineer come to my parents' backyard in New Jersey and like set up his like mobile recording rig. And yeah, he just recorded us playing the song live, and my dad filmed it on an iPhone, like with that video. And we did it like a couple times till we got a good take. And I was like, all right, well, we'll see how this goes. And I got the video back. I was like, all right, like cool. And I put it out. And then by the time I put that video out, like nothing had happened with the song. And it was March 2020, and like the pandemic was just starting. So I put out that like that minute long clip on Instagram, and like people started immediately like commenting on it and stuff. And I was like, oh, it seems to be like really well received. And then like I was like, I'll try running like an ad from it. You can just like click a button on your phone and like do an ad. I put like $50 into it, and like it just started going like wildfire from there. And like, like all these people like were like reaching out and stuff. And then like within a couple days, I guess enough people saw it on Instagram and then like went through like the link in my bio onto Spotify and listened to the full song, that it got added to like an algorithmic playlist on Spotify called Discover Weekly. And from there, it just like recommends that song to people who listen to that kind of music. And like, that is just like basically what gave me traction as an artist. Cause I'd put out a handful of songs before then and like nothing was really happening. So that was like really encouraging just to know like, oh, I don't need to like suck up to any of these music bloggers or like do any of this other stuff. I can just like film myself doing what I enjoy doing and like think I do best, which is like playing live with a band, and then just like put it out for the world to see and like go from there. So that's kind of like been my whole approach from when I started releasing music. And like 2 years later, it still plays a big part. I still enjoy filming those like live sessions and yeah, putting them out for all the songs. I'm going to do one on Monday as well.
So exciting. And that approach, from the little bit that I know you, seems much more true to you than pandering to a blogger to share about your work.
Definitely. Yeah. Which is why I'm like, there's the music industry is so generally toxic to artists and not supportive and just a cut through the place, overcrowded, like lots of predatory stuff going on. But I still think it's the best time to be an independent artist because you have like more reach than ever before. Like in the 90s, like your whole career could be just like brought to a screeching halt and ended forever by like a record label, because they would basically like sign so many artists just like on a whim if they had a promising demo and like try it out with some like radio airplay. And then if it didn't do well, they would like just shelve it and like never even let the full album come out, and like a lot of horrible stuff. Or like if you got a bad review from a place like, Pitchfork or some like outlet, it could literally end your music career. And now it's just like simply not the case. So
Oh, I'm glad that some of those barriers are being broken down. And I love that I think it took a lot of initiative still to go forward with letting your dad do the iPhone filming, right? And putting it in your parents' backyard. I think a lot of times, the first reaction to an opportunity could be to create walls, right? To be like, I don't have the technical skill, or I don't have the cool place, and I don't know the person, or I don't have the finances to get this like special ritzy team to get it done. But it does sound like this is like a very cool time to be alive in a lot of ways. And so taking advantage of what makes it cool seems to make all the difference.
yeah, definitely. I mean, I guess depending on how you look at it, it's a good or bad thing that like it's, that stuff is like so available. It's just like up to you to figure out how you fit into, the hundreds of thousands of people trying to do the same thing. But yeah, it's cool. Like it's like as a musician, if you have like the ability to just like figure out things and get things done and produce, videos and stuff, like it goes a long way.
Yeah. That statistic that you shared was mind blowing about the 40,000 songs a day on Spotify.
Mhm.
As a musician who's taking this approach of, trying to do things kind of in-house or like without these big labels and stuff, what keeps you optimistic in that sea of people, or hopeful or excited or whatever the feeling might be?
Yeah, I mean, personally for me, it's just that I think like 90% of those 40,000 songs, like there's no push behind them to get them heard by anybody. Spotify does a really good job of hiding all that music where it's like, it's like there's not anything else going on behind it, or the recording is like really low quality and stuff. So it's a scary number at first, and who knows if it's still accurate. Like I know it's like a crazy volume in the tens of thousands of songs that go up every day, but I think if you're willing to like put in the work and stuff and like do that, like that number is not a problem. The cream of the crop always rises. And not that I was ever so confident in like the quality of my music either. I just like, I don't know. It's like, if you like it, if you genuinely like the music at some point, because I'll go through things where I think my music is great and I think it's literally garbage. Like if you like it at some point, there's other people out there who are going to like it. So it's just like a matter of finding those things. It's not so much finding those people. It's not a matter of like competition so much. And yeah, I think like, like again, like that video, you could be like, oh, well, I can't get like someone to come out and record. It's like, well, you don't even necessarily need an audio engineer out there. Like set up your band, get an iPhone out. It's like everyone has access to these things. So yeah.
So cool. No, and I think that it's true on every level when you choose the musician who shows up on time versus the one with the crazy talent. And that effort is always going to make a difference. And that cream of the crop situation,
Right.
I
Yeah.
wholeheartedly endorse too.
I
So
do. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
no, please go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, I know a lot of musicians in Philly who I think they're so much like so talented, and it's like almost like a shame that they don't have just like they can't get it together to like organize and get past the like personal subjective part of like the fear of like putting out your music and stuff. But like, and like sometimes I hear echoed from those people are complaints of like, oh, well, now you have to do everything. It's not about the music. But I'm like, it was never like, if you're trying to be in the music industry, like you can always just put out music and not put anything behind it, and you create great art and it's awesome. But like to be like in the music industry, there was always someone doing all that other stuff, but the only change was that they were taking all the money and not giving you any. So now, you can at least like take it into your own hands. Although the payouts that musicians get, even if they are doing that, is a whole nother discussion. But sorry, go ahead.
No, this is all the inside scoop that I never know I needed, but now I feel like I'm really well equipped to talk and seem really informed at the next party. So thank you. And so we just looked at one song that was a couple years ago now, right? Start of the pandemic is when that video came out. Then most recently there's a full 10-track album situation, right? How do we get from that point to now? When did the album, like the idea even to make the album start to come to be?
Yeah, so I'd put out, I guess, almost like 6 or 8 single songs and then like a collection of live recordings. So that's like almost like 12 songs. And I just like wasn't, I don't know, like I was getting to a point where you have the new age of the music industry where you can do everything yourself, grow a following on social media, like start getting all these listeners, but then there's still the old guard of the gatekeepers, like the booking agents, the managers, the big outlets, and that still exists, and it's still an unavoidable part of the music industry. So I found that as I like got a handle on like the one side, I was starting to encounter like a little bit of interest from the other side, and just like seeming like that, like, oh, even though maybe albums are less relevant in the new like landscape of the music industry, like people were still asking, like a booking agent be like, oh, well, when's like what project? Like, oh, they don't have an album. And like, so honestly, it kind of started from that. I was like, I need an album, which like at that point I had enough songs. They just like weren't together as an album. So I wanted to do like one cohesive project. And I was working with a manager at the time, and it kind of all spurred from that. And, the album was like maybe like 2 old songs that I had been playing for a while. And then the rest I just like wrote pretty quickly. And yeah, so it just came like that. And I never had like such a cohesive vision, but I knew that I wanted to include all the people I'd been able to work with over the years, because I played guitar in other people's bands and met so many other great musicians who all brought different things to the table. So I ended up recording the album at 4, technically 5 different studios. If you count this one, like my friend's apartment when I was living in France, is like one song that got carried over.
Wow.
With like 4 different producers and like I think like 14 or 17 different musicians like playing across the album. And all the songs just kind of like, I never consciously thought about it, but they all just kind of fell into this common thread that putting it under Irrational Actors made sense, and all the themes were just kind of tying together. So it felt a little bit serendipitous. And then the music was the easy part. Like everything else was like tough. I'm still like have all these videos I'm sitting on and need to like use to promote and stuff. But yeah.
Yeah, one step at a time. It's so cool to have that product to do all the other stuff around, right? I feel like that's so meaningful. Um, what are some of the most satisfying parts of the music making process for you? Is it like the end listening? Is it the beginning writing by yourself? Is it something totally different?
So many of the studio sessions, there were moments where I was just like, oh, I can't believe I'm like in the studio with these people. Like there, yeah, so many people, again, like I said, like people that I've just like always wanted to work with, and I was just like, there were like certain times when I was just like, my recording was done and I could just relax, and I'm just like listening to like friends and, acquaintances who I'm working with, just like laying down some crazy instrumentation over the song. And I just felt like so much gratitude for that. So those are the best parts, like being in the studio and like making it and hearing it just like in a recording studio, like it sounds so good, like the sound systems are amazing, and like that's super satisfying. Like it never gets better than that, especially once you like finish a song like finally, and you're just like everyone's basking in the creation, and those are definitely some of the most satisfying moments.
Yeah, that sounds very satisfying and so memorable. I hope there's some photos somewhere so that one day when it's like a totally different life that you're in, you can be like, oh my gosh, this is the beginning.
Definitely. I got a bunch of like disposable cameras that I would bring to the session.
Yes.
So I've been working on like kind of a making of big like blog post I'm just going to put on my website that kind of breaks down the process and all the different studios we were in.
That feels like it's gonna be such a cool vibe to look at all those photos together and just reminisce what it was and what it will continue to be.
Yeah.
Um, as I picture what those photos might look like, I'm envisioning, like late nights and pizza boxes and like maybe a kind of romantic view of what it is to be in recording studios. Is that true to life? What are some of the misconceptions?
Pizza boxes is a good conception. I think the misconception, like I remember one time in my early days, we went to like my friend's like dad's house. We drove down to DC because he was like a hobby recording guy, and like he had this like really nice studio in his basement. And my friends, they were like so excited. They're like, yeah, and they all came over and they were ready to start like drinking and like just like partying recording session. I was like, no, like you're gonna sit here for like 2 hours while he hits like a drum, and like it's just like so tedious. Every producer has a different style, and like I've been at recording sessions where like everyone's drinking and smoking and it's just like more of a party, but like I can't work that way. I think the music suffers for it ultimately. I mean, everyone has a different style, but just how long they are. And like, a lot of times like recording is expensive. That's another thing, is like, to record the old school way where like so much music now you hear is like electronic drums. Maybe it's just someone making it in their bedroom. Like if you're going in, you're doing a day where you're with a band, you're like tracking, which is just like recording like the parts of the songs. It's like you'll go in, spend 1 to 2 hours while everything is set up. Like that doesn't start until you get there. They're miking up the drum kits, it's getting sounds. And then like if you're really like, the way a lot of bands would do it is like they would record the bass, drums, and like rhythm guitar for like 5 songs, like just like spend hours doing that until you get everyone right. And then you move on to the lead vocals and you do that, and then you add on the supporting instrumentation and all these other layers. And it's just like such a grueling day because you just like, you pay for the setup time, you want to knock out as much as possible. Mine was a little bit less stressful than that, like because I was doing it in so many different studios, and some of the guitar stuff I had recorded on my own already. But there's still long days. So yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think if there's any other stuff. It's just like a lot of sitting around. I would use like, and the other thing is like, it can become maddening. Like, the engineer will have to listen to a snare drum being hit like 30 times while he plays with dials to make sure like it sounds right and stuff. And then you're listening to parts of a song over and over again. You lose all perspective on like what's going on. So I used randomly got into cross stitching, and I would use like cross stitching to like, this is something I'm working on,
That
like
is fabulous.
thanks, to like take my mind off of the song so I could like listen and give accurate feedback, because it would prevent me from like over focusing on something I'd listened to like 100 times already. So there's a lot of tedium involved. But yeah.
Yeah, I think that I definitely would not have considered the tedium in my romanticized view, but that makes so much sense. Um, wow, no, that's so interesting. And I I'm thinking of the Febreze commercials about being nose blind, and that's my best analogy, I think, to what you're describing of like, what is sound?
Yeah.
What are we looking for? What is a symbol actually meant to sound like? Like that seems
I,
harrowing.
I can't tell you how many times when I was just like, no, like this guitar lick, this note right here is off. And like the producer would be like, I don't hear it. I'm like, let me play with it. And I'll do it. And then I'm like, I don't even know what I'm listening to anymore.
Oh my gosh, that does not sound easy. So I can imagine that only adds to the satisfaction when it's all done and it's just right and you get your full 8 hours of sleep one day or whatever it
Definitely.
may
Yeah.
be.
Yeah.
I also think there's kind of I'm starting to see a connection between hosting the studio experience and just like hosting in one's house. Like you are kind of curating this environment to make this beautiful thing, or in the house version to like, strengthen these relationships and whatnot. um it's still maybe early on and so maybe it hasn't come up yet, but is there going to be something that's like signature part of your studio recording experience? It's like maybe there will always be cross stitching, or maybe you're known to bring that pizza box and it's always from a place called Ray's. I don't know, but
Right. Yeah.
like
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think for me, like I'll always use something like cross stitching to like help me like focus on the process, but it's really the space defines the vibe a lot. It's really interesting how much the space is important. And like I think one of my favorite spaces to record in is this place called Treacle Mine Recording with there's the one band I featured on my album is called Trap Rabbit, and they're this amazing like keys and drums duo. They call themselves Philadelphia's premier fake jazz duo, but like they're these two just like incredible musicians. And then their kind of like partner in crime is this British recording engineer. And this studio is like way up in North Philadelphia, and it's just one room, which is not what you typically see in a recording studio. Usually the recording engineer sits in like an isolated sound booth where they just hear everything coming from their speakers for accuracy. But like this is like they're working with what they got. So they have all this crazy gear in one room. The drums are in there. Like there's no like really like super professional like sound isolation, which you generally get in like big recording studios. But like I think it's some of the best sounds we got on the album. Like it sounds like it was recorded in this like multi-million-dollar studio. And it's such a cozy room, like the lighting, the way there's like the couch behind the console for everyone to hang out on. And so yeah, I think it's really up to the space. Like another space I recorded in was called Milk Boy Studio, which is this like kind of iconic studio in Philadelphia where like the Roots recorded, and like a lot of like Lil Uzi Vert and some like the bigger names today in the kind of rap space will go. And like there we were like, you know, tucked away in like one of like the B rooms because we were just going in at night when my friend could like get us in for free. But that was cool in its own way because it's just like a very like cozy, intimate setting. And yeah, it's like each studio has its own special little routine. There's the places you go, you know, we'd always get banh mi's at the one place and then like pizza somewhere else. So I think it's really the space defines a lot.
That's so cool. And that one you mentioned, is it Milk Crate, you said?
Milk Boy.
Milk Boy. Okay. Is there a coffee shop tied to it? Because there's something with a very similar name in that Fishtown area that's very hip. I don't.
So there maybe, I don't know, you might be referencing something else, but Milk Boy has since expanded to bars, restaurants, and also like concert venues. There's one in Center City that hosts some pretty cool concerts. And then there's one in South Philadelphia that's just more of like a bar. But yeah.
Okay, so there's a reason that it's sounding familiar. I'll have to dive deeper into that, but so special to get to record into just historical places. One of my final questions on this album specifically, it says, you know, now streaming everywhere via Alpha Pup Records. What does it mean to be via Alpha Pup Records?
Sure. Yeah. So basically like what you see a lot these days is record labels that are becoming these like hybrid things. It's kind of another product of like the new music industry landscape. And so I had like a little distribution deal with them, which basically means that they are delivering my music to like Spotify and like Apple Music and all the other streaming services instead of me just using like one of these like self-service places. Because I can't just like sign up to Spotify and put my music on there. Like you have to go through a distributor. And what most like independent artists will use is something like DistroKid or CD Baby, where like you pay a yearly fee and you can put as much music up as you want. So with Alpha Pup, they do distribution where it's like they have more, they're more connected and they have relationships with some of the people out there. So they kind of help put your music in front of some of the people at Spotify for consideration and stuff like that. But they're also a record label, which is, I don't have a label deal with them. That's like more of a thing where they're taking on a small amount of artists and stuff like that. So there's really a lot of these companies popping up where they do distribution, they do label deals, they do funding. Like there's one called AWOL, where it's like there's different tiers of artists, and like the bottom tier is like, they're just distributing your music for you, and it's almost like a self-serve thing. Within the second tier, you're getting some more like guidance and attention. And then the top tier, they're actually giving you like, like $60,000 behind the album and like a label deal. So there's a lot of hybrid type stuff that's coming out these days. And yeah, partnering with Alpha Pup was cool. They've been super helpful, and yeah, so.
That's so interesting. And I thank you for taking the moment to explain it. So I hear how, music is, of course, the driving force, but there's so much behind the scenes to make it happen. And a lot of what's sounding like business-minded things. Is there a way that you keep up with what's going on in this industry for the sake of how you want to grow in it? Or is it just, word of mouth on the scene in Philadelphia? What is that like?
Yeah, it's tough. It's a little bit of everything. When I say I have like one of my strengths is having like my shit together a little bit, is like I'm still like not great at like the business side and keeping up. Like the music industry gets so complex when you get into royalties and stuff. And basically the way I keep up with it is I have one friend who's like a jazz saxophonist and like has just an insane entrepreneurial drive and understanding of the industry. And like every time we hang out, like he lives in LA now, so it's less frequent, but like I'll just get the rundown of like the state of the industry. And like anytime I have questions, I go to him. Everything's online, but it's still so confusing. Like there's really a lot of stuff that it's just like you can't do it all. And I couldn't do it all because after I put my album out, I burned out for like a month. I was just so exhausted with everything. And like also just had like another moment of reckoning of like, okay, what do I want to do? Like there's a lot of just like the state of the industry is really unfavorable if you're trying to go on tour, which has always been my driving force behind getting into music, is like I want to go tour and play in front of people and share my music around the world. And it's really hard to do that now. So yeah, you know, I'll keep in touch with things, and again, trying to like, I'm really trying to build out a team so I don't have to think as much about that and and I can put more focus on the creative side because that's my strength. So yeah, you can't do it alone completely despite trying, but it's like more like getting yourself to a place where you're ready to have a team.
Yeah, but in the meantime, a friend who plays saxophone and reads a lot about a specific thing, not a bad accompaniment. That's pretty
Yeah,
solid.
definitely.
So as we are kind of abstracting back out, why it all keeps mattering, what keeps driving you, and that vision for the tour bus and all those things. I want to make sure that I ask, what does it mean for you to be a musician in Philadelphia? You spoke about it a bit with the album. I don't know if the album art also comes from Philadelphia artists, but I'm really curious to hear what it means for you that you are planted where you are.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I love Philadelphia, like when you look at music cities, there's Philadelphia, or sorry, there's New York, Los Angeles, and Nashville. Those are the big three. New York and Los Angeles are insanely expensive. I don't know what it's like in Nashville. I'm sure it's not as bad, but still pretty expensive. So Philadelphia is still a relatively inexpensive city to live in, which like allows me to put more like investment, like resources into pursuing music. I love the music scene here. It feels really diverse. Like I have friends, like really good friends in everything ranging from like electronic music to like folk to rock. So the community, there's a lot of like genre mixing, which I love. There's not a sense of like strong competition. Like in New York, it's like, it feels more cutthroat. LA is like who people looking over your shoulder for anyone with more clout in the room. There's great people everywhere, but I've just found Philly to be have such a working class feeling. And maybe if anything, it comes at the expense of some like professionalism and stuff like that. But like, I can't imagine really living anywhere else. It just feels like home. The person who did the artwork is a Philadelphia-based artist, Michele Scott. He's awesome. I'm going to pull down the artwork I have here.
Yes, please do.
Just, show it. And
Oh
it's
my
like,
gosh.
honestly my favorite part of the whole thing. I kind of get the glare here, but
It's so
yeah,
good.
he's great. And we've worked together on like a lot of different stuff. And yeah, I think he really nailed what I wanted from the album. And yeah, I don't know. I just love it here. And yeah, I think I'll be here for a while.
That's so cool to love where you live. I feel saddened for people who don't feel that way. And so to embrace it and make the most of
Yeah.
it sounds like
And I guess just in terms of like why, I guess the main thing at this point, I'm just like want a body of work to look back on, regardless of what happens with it, if I'm able to get to the level of like touring and playing shows that I want to do. But yeah, just like I'm super proud of the album. I enjoy it, and I'm just gonna keep doing stuff and keep putting out videos and music. So yeah.
so good. I think that's an awesome way to frame it. And if there are other people who are listening and are like, super inspired by this as they should be and want to similarly pursue whatever creative thing is fueling them, particularly maybe music, what lessons have you learned or wisdom have you received or been especially mindful of that you would want to share with that person?
Yeah. I never feel like I'm in a place to give advice, but I would say like today it feels like we're bombarded constantly by so much signal noise, mostly coming from our phones. And I would say to like, when it comes to making art, to like tune that out as much as possible, focus on, yeah, just like what drives you and what gets you excited. Like I always trust my gut instinct and try to connect with that. Whether that's like finishing a song later on, trying to connect with the original moment of inspiration, or just reminding myself like, hey, you liked this at one point, don't get in your head about it. And just like try things. I think doing and trial and error. Like I think the music industry is like just like wandering around in the dark, just like stubbing your toe on different things and like creating a map. Be like, all right, well, I'm not going to do that again. And then you do that in a slightly different way. And you're like, damn it. Like it's like so many just like lessons learned. So embrace that level of discomfort, because I think to be an artist today is harder than ever, but it doesn't mean it's not worth doing. Yeah.
That is so true, and so applicable to so many things. I remember when we were speaking the first time and you talked about just the flexibility that is required in being an artist. But I think coupled with that visual of bumping into things in the dark, like it's painful flexibility. It's not just, oh, I'm an acrobat and I'm really inherently flexible. It's like, no, I'm gonna grow and have bruises and like bloodshed, maybe, who knows?
Absolutely. A lot of scar tissue.
You'll all the scar tissue, but to have that kind of anchoring thing in the back of your mind of why am I doing this? I can see how that would be really meaningful. So finally, Kyle, what do you want people to leave knowing about you that hasn't been said or that needs to more explicitly be said? And what are you really looking forward to right now? And it can be related to the music. It can be completely tangential. The sky is the limit.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I would just give myself a little self-promotion to say, check out the album if you like funky music and come see a live show, because I think that's where we really shine. But yeah, I guess what I'm excited about now is like, since the album came out, I had my album release show, which I sold out, which like felt super gratifying because I was super worried about it. And since then, it's like, I was like, I emptied my savings account in the album and like haven't recouped that yet and don't know if I ever will, but like it's helped me on my goal toward touring more and like getting better like gigs. I just got like a gig for, I'd say like the biggest like band yet, where I'll be opening for them in Philadelphia. I'm really excited for that in January. So that's got me like some extra motivation at the moment.
That's so cool. So we'll all be staying tuned to see how your story continues to unfold. Kyle, it was so cool to spend this evening with you and to learn a bit more about the work that you do and the art that you make and put into the world. So again, thank you. And I'm really excited to share your story.
Yeah, thank you, Kara. Thanks for reaching out. I'm honored you wanted to learn about my stuff.